Hi, I'm Matt Bishop, and I am a professor in the Department of Computer Science at the University of California at Davis. I'm co-director of the Computer Security Laboratory here. Among other things, I teach computer security. I'm here to talk about trust in security and how to establish it. One of the cornerstones of security is trust. We see this in everyday life. We trust that the locks on our doors will keep out the people we don't want to see coming in. If that trust is misplaced, we're in some type of danger from those obnoxious folks. We trust that the food and medicine we buy will not harm us. If that trust is misplaced, we may get sick or die. So trust is an everyday act, and without it we would be eternally suspicious to the point of not being able to function. But we have to be careful our trust is well placed. If the lock were made out of cardboard, we can't trust it. If the food and medicine were recalled, our trust in it has been misplaced. The same is true in the computer world. We trust that our cell phone will not send our SMS texts to a vendor without our permission. We trust that the computer we use will not change data at will. We trust that we can access websites from our computer or cell phone. If our trust is misplaced, for example, when a computer virus gets onto our cell phone or computer, then all bets are off. We may find that it has sent our SMS texts out, or that it has changed the data and we have to pay a ransom in order to restore the original data, in which case we're trusting the malefactors to give us the key to restore the data with, and not simply take our money and run. So trust is essential in cyberspace. Cybersecurity is built upon trust. Security mechanisms protect our private data. This is confidentiality. Those mechanisms validate that our data is correct and prevent our data from being changed without authorization or by unauthorized people. This is integrity. Network security mechanisms allow us to connect to websites. This is availability. This triad of confidentiality, integrity, and availability describes the three basic properties of security. These properties are interconnected because security mechanisms rely on some combination of these properties. For example, the controls on a computer that prevent others from seeing your data provide confidentiality. But were this mechanism corrupted or unavailable, it would not work properly. Indeed, all mechanisms rely on integrity and availability in that way. In cybersecurity as in life, it's easiest to trust something we understand. That's where simplicity comes in. Simpler mechanisms are less likely to fail than complex mechanisms because there is less in them that can fail. But don't go overboard. Sometimes complexity is necessary. As Einstein is reputed to have said, everything should be as simple as possible, but no simpler. Even then, though, the mechanisms should be only as complex as is necessary to perform their function. Same with restrictiveness. You want to give apps as little power as possible. They have to have some access to your data and your system, otherwise why are you running them? But they should only have enough access to perform their function. And when in doubt, deny access. Access should have to be explicitly granted. There are two basic cybersecurity principles. The former is the principle of least privilege, and the latter, the principle of fail-safe defaults. This brings up the question of how we establish trust in cyberspace. There are a couple of ways. The first is to look at the principles of cybersecurity and see if the object or mechanism in question implements those principles. If not, don't trust it. If you have to use it, be very wary of what it can do. The second is to look at reputation. Compare it to other things you do trust and use those as a basis for evaluation. For example, when you download an app that was created by a reputable company, you're trusting that the company built the app to do what it is supposed to do and not do bad things like sending your SMS text messages out to a third party. But if your trust is misplaced, for example, somebody took the app, modified it to do exactly that, placed it in a repository not connected to the company, and you download it from that repository, well, then the app can do things you don't want it to do. So look for sources. Where did the app come from? Who wrote that word processing program? Who stores it? And who do you download it from? Do you trust them all? A good analogy is the realm of fake news. When you're evaluating how much to believe a news report, you look for two things. First, where did the news originate? Was the initial reporter and reporting from a credible source? Second, who is distributing it? A newspaper, news website, or another entity you trust to carry reports without changing them? or a distributor that invents stories or changes existing stories to push a particular point of view or suppress certain facts. Security in cyberspace is a lot like security in the physical world. Some things we can examine for ourselves to decide whether or not to trust it, and if so, to what degree we should trust it. Remember, trust is not a yes-no act. You can trust one person more than another while still trusting the second person to a lesser degree. Other things are just too complex. When you fly on an airplane, you can't examine its engines and wiring yourself. You trust the airplane manufacturer to have built the plane well and the airline company to properly maintain it. If they have not, your flight may be delayed or the plane may crash. Same with computers. We can examine the layout of a network, for example, and look for firewalls and other security mechanisms to determine whether the system is well defended. But we don't know that the firewall will properly implement the rules to block attackers. We can examine the rules, true, but we can't watch the programs controlling the firewall as they actually enforce them. We base our trust on the actions that we see, and even then we can't always be watching the firewall. But a site with an active firewall and up-to-date rules that protects a computer with antivirus and up-to-date rules from reputable manufacturers is probably pretty safe. But only probably, as we are trusting the firewall and antivirus manufacturers to build trustworthy products and keep their rules up to date. I hope this gives you an idea of how critical trust is to establishing security and some thoughts about how to establish trust. It's something each person has to learn, and people do it differently. I hope what I've discussed will help you decide what and whom to trust. Thank you.